Welcome to the Life You Love podcast.
We're your hosts, Grace Lemire
and Erin Convertini.
This podcast is for the dreamers and the doers.
For the women who want to create a life they genuinely love waking up to.
We believe that life's short, so let's build one we love. We both get questions all the time about how we had the courage to start posting on social media and whether we feared what people would think, really in all aspects of our businesses. The truth is, we're all actually hardwired to care what other people think, but this often prevents us from going after what we really want. So in today's episode, we're sharing some of the things that have helped us stop caring what other people think, so hopefully you can stop caring too and go after what you want.
I love this topic so much. And I would just like to say before we get into this, because I don't want this to come across as like we're teaching you because we've mastered it. I think this is something like everything, like you have to continue to exercise this muscle. And a lot of times you're going to have to take action despite caring what other people think, until it's kind of like a fake it until you make it kind of thing. For example, when I started posting on social media, it was not from a place of I don't care what other people think of me. It was from a place of I'm going to create a new account. I'm going to block every single person that I know in my personal life so that they can't find my new account. And I'm going to post on my new account for as long as I can go until people discover me. And I think by the time people in my personal life started to find my account, I think I had around like 50,000 followers. So I was starting to get to a point where I was like, okay, well, now I don't care because I have some followers behind it. It kind of gives you like a credibility point, but you have to take action despite caring and feeling uncomfortable until you get to a point where you don't care what other people think. But in a nutshell, to sum up this entire episode, your fear of what other people think of you is holding you back. And when we're kind of talking about like holding you back from what, we're all striving for true happiness, and a lot of that is rooted in feeling like you're doing something meaningful and making an impact, but your fear of caring what other people think about you holds you back from going after that meaningful and fulfilling work or what you want out of life, because a lot of times we don't know what that is, and we're going to have to try a lot of different things in order to get there, and we can't try all of those things if we're sitting there caring about what other people think about us.
100%. Great note on the fact that we do not think we've mastered this at all. And I mean, I definitely haven't mastered it. I think it's normal to care what people think. I will say, which we'll talk about a little bit in the psychology of this, something shifted in the energy of my life when I moved to Florida in January, because I used to care so much about what people think. And when I moved here, something clicked in my brain where like I get hate comments. Someone actually DM'd me the other day, which was funny. I didn't tell you about this. They said, your podcast is SHIT. They said you're like, it was so funny. I was like, you listen? Thanks. Like, thanks for the listen. That was great. Leave a review on Spotify. No, but they said, yeah, like your podcast is SHIT. They said like they called me some sort of name, and they were like, and stay inside. And it's funny because that type of DM a year ago would have hurt me to my core. I was cackling. I was like, this is hilarious. Like, I was like, this is so funny. I just didn't care at all. And I think it's interesting, and I'm so excited about this episode to be able to share some of the things that have really helped me stop caring, because I know when I cared so much, it did hold me back in so many ways, and it prevented me from putting things out into the world that I wanted to. It made me insecure when I was in group settings. And there's just so many things that I think are really genuinely going to unlock just like an energy of not caring for people in today's episode. And I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, I think this episode is going to be a good mix of how to actually not care what people think about you, but then also kind of how to fake it until you make it, because we're kind of still, I mean, everybody is like, no one completely masters this and moves about their life every second of every day, not caring what people think. But it's funny that you say that about moving to Florida, because I am so passionate about this, and it's probably not what you think. Well, you've probably heard me say this before, but your online environment matters a lot more than your physical environment. A lot of people, the fear of what other people think, a lot of times for a lot of people is coming from people they know in their personal life. And a lot of people you know in your personal life probably know a prior version of you, or the version of you that you're trying to outgrow. So you're afraid of putting yourself out there and stepping into this new version of yourself, because everyone around you and everyone who's watching you knows you as a prior version of yourself. And that's why moving away from your hometown or your home city can give you that feeling of I'm allowed to be this next level version of myself because no one knows the prior version of me. But I say this all the time that your online environment matters exponentially more than your physical environment, because a lot of people, even if you, let's say, move to a new city, but your online environment is still everyone you went to high school with. You open Instagram 25 times a day, and every time you open the app, you're seeing someone you went to high school with, someone you went to college with, people who know you as a prior version of yourself. You're not going to feel comfortable to, this isn't just applicable to you starting to post on Instagram and trying to be a content creator and all of that. It's not just that. It's just when your energy is surrounded by people who know you for that prior version of you, it's a lot harder to step in to the next level version of you, which is why I'm such a big advocate of the whole like starting a new social media account and changing your online environment and really curating that online environment for who you want to be.
Absolutely. Before we get into some of the like tactics for how to actually stop caring, y'all know me. I wanted to talk a little bit about the psychology of it, because for me, understanding the psychology behind these things has been the most empowering thing for me, I think, in my personal development journey over the last probably 3 or so years, because it just helps you. I feel like it provides a lot of validation for how you're feeling and also helps you better understand how to actually create change. Because I think a lot of what we see on social media, especially, is just a lot of frilly stuff that people are like, how to stop caring what people think. Just don't care. Why does it matter? Thanks, Queen. That's so great. And you just motivated me. But like, now what do I go do? You know, it's like, how do I actually take that and create real change for myself? When I started researching this topic, what I found was that we all actually have an evolutionary bias to seek social approval. Because what I found was actually that's how people survived in tribes. And I thought that was so fascinating. So know that if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, why do I care so much about what people think of me? That it's not just a you problem. There's a lot of people, everybody has a bias towards caring what other people think because we seek approval. And I thought that's so fascinating. So then our brains, which is again, I'm just so fascinated by this. Our brains are wired to detect social rejection similarly to physical pain. So if you've ever been in a group and you feel like you're almost like reading into the people around you a bit too much, you're like worried about what people are thinking of you, it's because your brain is basically it's trying to keep you safe. So it's trying to avoid that social rejection by being able to detect it more. Again, so fascinating when you realize this is your brain just trying to protect you and keep you safe. And we just talked about this in another episode as well a few weeks ago. And it's this idea of the spotlight effect, which is basically the idea that we massively overestimate how much other people notice us and remember our actions. I don't know the exact stat of how much we overestimate it, but it's insane. Both good and bad actions, we think that people are paying attention more than they are and that people care and think about it more than they actually do. So when you're thinking about like, do people care about what I'm doing? You think they do. The amount that you think they do in your head, just take a fraction of that. That's how much people actually care. So regardless of whether you think they care a lot or they don't, it's a fraction of however much you care, however much you think they care, because they don't.
100%. I mean, literally from the beginning of time, since like school, I think school age is a lot of where this comes from, but we have been not like taught to fit in, but I do think that's like our inherent bias is to seek that approval and try to fit in. But I think shifting your mindset from trying, like, fitting in with who. And I think that's where your environment comes into play, because it's like if you are in the wrong environment, you're probably going to feel like you are being judged by your peers. But it's like if you're shifting your mindset to, okay, well, if I am having this fear of judgment and caring what other people think about me, I probably just need to change my environment and change it to fit in with the people that I actually feel authentic with, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. There's a point I want to make so bad, but I'm holding it until we get to that section because I don't want to mess up the flow of this episode, but because it was such a big game changer for me on that topic. But I do want to say before we move into like some of the tactical steps, there's a difference between a healthy awareness of the world around you and how people perceive you and an unhealthy preoccupation of what people think about you. And I think that's a really good balance to strike because, for example, if I didn't care at all, not 1 ounce, about what people thought about me, I wouldn't care about how the people that matter feel about me, right? So like when I post a piece of content on the internet, do I care what Joe Schmo from, random Illinois? No, I don't care. I don't even know you. Why would I care what you think about me? But if there are people that engage with my content all of the time. And if they came to me and they were like, hey, like, I feel like something you said was like a little bit off base or whatever, I would care, because I'm like, whoa, okay, this person matters to me. So I'm going to care what they say. Or if my best friend came to me and was like, hey, I feel like da da da, whatever, I would care what she has to say. But there's a difference between having that healthy awareness of, is my behavior acceptable? Am I behaving in a kind way? Am I, whatever, and being unhealthily preoccupied with it. And I think that if your thoughts of what other people think about you is preventing you from going after your dream life, I would argue that there's a bit of an unhealthy preoccupation with what other people think about you. Because when you do that, whether it's subconscious or conscious, you are choosing to place their opinions of you over your opinions of yourself, which is, when you actually think about it, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is crazy. And I've been there, and I still get there sometimes where I'm like, hold on now, whose opinion matters the most here? Mine. But also, are we really like, are we going to let somebody else's opinion of us prevent you from possibly having a life that you actually want? To me, that's an unhealthy preoccupation. And we've got to step back a little bit and get to a point where we're far less preoccupied, and then eventually at a point where we're not preoccupied with other people's thoughts of us, and we're just at the healthy awareness stage.
100%. And that awareness stage is kind of the bridge between, yeah, all of the psychology behind this, and then getting into how we're actually going to tactically shift our mindset and stop judging or basing our actions on what we think that people are thinking about us, because they're really not thinking about us, as we just talked about. Yeah, so awareness is the entry point to that real behavior change and to start taking action. And I think this is all about that external approval when you are basing your actions off of how people view you and being validated externally. Yeah, so I think before we get into a lot of the mindset stuff and how we're tactically going to stop caring what other people think about us, we want to recognize our patterns. So like you just said, that awareness is going to be the entry point to real behavior change. So you listed some good points here on things that you can identify for, yeah, thinking too much about what people are thinking about you and how to change that.
Yeah, and these are subtle things. So it's funny because what is it when we talk about people who struggle with addiction, I know people would always say awareness is the first step to change or something like that. And I feel like it got overused at one point, and then I feel like that statement got weaponized, but the reason why is because you cannot change your behavior if you're not aware of it. And self-awareness, I always say self-awareness is a gift. If you have it, use it, because there are so many people on this planet who don't have an ounce of self-awareness. I feel like we all know one. We've all seen a man with no self-awareness, but I love men, so no hate to men. But I feel like it's good to like just zero in and pay attention to your behaviors. So all of these things are signs that maybe you're caring too much about what other people think about you. Do you change your opinions based on who you're talking to? Do you rehearse conversations or overthink interactions? This is one that I used to do all the time. I would rehearse like how I was going to handle a certain conversation or how I would say something. And I started to realize it's because I was afraid that if I didn't say it perfectly or didn't do it perfectly, someone was going to reject me or judge me or whatever. Or I would overthink every single interaction that I would have, especially with new people that I met. Do you feel anxious about being judged for normal activities? I feel like people have to relate to this one. Okay. Have you ever been walking through a public space and you're like, do I walk weird? Are people looking at me and thinking I walk weird? Or you trip over something and you're like, oh my gosh, everybody is looking at me. Everyone's judging me. And you start to like worry about tripping and falling over something is very normal, guys. It's really not that deep. Or you sneeze in public and you're like, do I have a weird sneeze? No. Or like, it's like the little things that all of a sudden you're like, am I, or when you put your windshield wipers on full speed, for some reason that's embarrassing. People joke about it. It's like, why is that all of a sudden embarrassing? Who cares what speed your windshield wipers are on? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. But when you start to feel anxious about being judged for things that are very much normal, that's another sign. And then also, do you make choices based on what looks good rather than what feels right? So this could be really anything. It could be with your space. Like, when you're decorating your space, are you thinking about the optics of it and what other people will think? Or are you going with what you feel is right? Or the way that you're getting dressed, or even just life decisions? Did you go and get another degree because you knew it would look really good? And other people would probably be like, wow, you have 2 degrees, or because it felt really right for you? Did you get into that relationship because you felt like it would look really good to be in that relationship or whatever, or because it really felt right? Think through those things and see, because if you are doing these things, right, it's a sign that you're preoccupied with other people's thoughts about you.
The feeling anxious about being judged for the normal activities is totally a universal experience. And I think one that comes up for me a lot, which I'm sure a lot of girls can definitely relate to this, is at the gym. Like, why
Oh,
do I
yeah.
feel so I go to the gym every single day. I have been for 4 or 5 years. That feeling, like just the slight anxiousness of like walking around a gym, maybe using a machine that you've never used before, trying to find the little like cable attachment that you're looking for. Like everything about the gym
Yes.
just gives you that slight feeling of anxiousness. And I have no idea why. And it's because you're sitting there thinking, people are looking at me, people are wondering why I can't find the cable attachment or why I don't know how to use this machine and I'm trying to figure it out, when it's like no one is thinking about you.
No one cares and no one's thinking about you that hard. And we'll get into this again more, but if they do care, then it's like, why do you care? Why do you care that they care? And again, we'll get into it deeper, but I think we have to remember also on that topic that struggling and not knowing all the answers is normal, right? When you're at the gym, because I used to feel this all the time too, because my gym that I used to go to back home in Massachusetts was very small, like a couple years ago, very small. So no matter where you are in the gym, you can see everybody in the gym. It's just one big square. It's not, or one little square, I mean. So you can't escape the eyes of the people around you, right? So if I was working out and, for example, let's say the little clips for the barbells weren't in the same area, or there was no clips like left over, I would have to walk around the gym to go find a clip. Why does that feel like the worst
Yes,
walk of shame ever? I'm just looking for a clip, you know what I mean? Or if I go over to a machine and it's taken or it's broken, why does walking back the other direction I
it
came
feels
feel
like the
so
walk of
embarrassing?
shame.
Or if I can't find something, or for example, I don't feel this anymore, but just using the exercise example, when I'm at Legree, why the first time I went, I had never been. I'm not going to know how to use the machine. Duh, you've never been. Why would you know how to use a machine if you've never been? So then why am I feeling embarrassed or worried if other people are judging me because I don't know how to use the machine? You've never been to the class. Why would you know how to use the machine? Or like when I'm in the class, I remember the first class I took, I still fight for my life in those classes, like, because they're just challenging. But the first class I went to, I was fighting for my life. I'm shaking, whatever. If you've done a Legree or Pilates class before, you know the shakes are very normal. And they tell you that in the class. They're like, if you're shaking, keep going. That's great. Whatever, your muscles are working. Why? Like, it's so easy to feel embarrassed or feel like, oh gosh, people are judging me for shaking. You were in a workout. You're in a workout class where the whole point is to work out and for it to be
Yes.
challenging and to push yourself. You should be shaking. You should be struggling. That's normal. This is a place where you're literally paying to come here and put your body through something that is challenging and struggle. Why do we get so, you know what I mean? That's normal. And sometimes I have to sit there and I have to ask myself, is this normal? Am I feeling embarrassed for something that is normal? 99.99999% of times, it is something that's normal. That's like, why would I feel embarrassed or worried about what somebody thinks about me for this thing that is so normal?
Yes, I just changed gyms last week, so I've been feeling like the walk of shame, not knowing where anything is. I've been feeling that so much, but I'm like, nope, we're still going to go every day. And one day this feeling of anxiousness will subside. But the next kind of section that we want to talk about is the cost of people pleasing and acting out of fear of judgment. So basically, not taking action based on what you think other people think about you. I heard this, I forget where I heard this. I don't know if it was a TikTok video, but it was basically saying like significance versus service. So the goal in life is to have meaning and purpose, right? Like you want to live a fulfilling life. Having meaning gives you a fulfilling life. Caring what other people think about you is making interactions about yourself rather than how you can serve people. So acting out of what might help you succeed versus what people really need. Like the latter actually helps you succeed long term because it helps you get that fulfillment, but you acting out of fear of judgment can actually like stop you from, you're making things about yourself. So you're making yourself significant, not the service significant. And I thought that that was a really good I don't know if that's like a consequence, but it's definitely a mindset shift that you can think about when you're making everything about you instead of what people actually need and how you can serve them.
I love that so much. When I was really thinking through this section of like, yeah, what can people pleasing take away from me, and how does caring what other people think about me and placing that higher than what I think about myself, how does that what does that take away from me? One of the things that I thought about was how you can actually lose touch with your authentic preferences. And I feel like this has probably happened to a lot of people listening. I know it happened to me where I'm like, what do I actually care about? For example, I'll just like, yeah, talk about this in my own life. From literally the second I was born, I have always been the very responsible friend, the mom friend, the person who always tries to go above and beyond, the straight A student, like the person who really cares about all the jobs I had. When I worked at McDonald's, I was hustling. You know what I mean? Like I loved that. I've always been the person that when I'm given, whatever I'm given, I'm going to try to give it my all. And there was a point in time in middle school where I was made fun of for that. And a point in time in college where I was also made fun of for that, for the amount of effort I put into things and for some of the things that I enjoyed as the more responsible friend. I've never loved going out and partying every Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. I've never enjoyed it. I want to play board games with my friends. And if you followed me last year, you know, I used to do diamond painting all the time. And it's like a grandma craft. I really enjoy it. And for a long time, those types of things that were less quote unquote cool by the standards of these like popular people or whatever in middle school and in college, I would not do those things. I wouldn't talk about the fact that I would do those things. And it got to a point where I remember when I was in college, I was an RA, a resident assistant, and I loved my job. I put so much effort into every single bulletin board that I had. I would go to like the ends of the earth to make like the cutest little graphics and like whatever. I loved it. I genuinely cared about my relationships with my residents, and I put so much effort into it. When I was doing rounds of the building, I would really care. I'm looking under the bathroom stalls to make sure that nobody's passed out. Like I'm not just, and there would be people who would just fling the bathroom door open and like not even check, which is, you're checking to make sure people are safe in the building, right? I would genuinely put effort in, and people would sometimes make fun of me for the effort that I put into it. I just was like, I don't know, it just made me realize like, why am I doing that? And so I would not talk about it. I would talk less to certain people about how much I loved my job. And when I was working with certain people in that job specifically, I would kind of like make it seem like I didn't care as much about things. Like I'd be like, yeah, like I just have extra time to do my bulletin board. So that's why I'm going to take more time to do it. Or, oh, well, like I'm so thorough when I do rounds of the building because I found someone collapsed in the bathroom one time. So now I'm just like, I just really want to look. No, it isn't just that. It's the fact that I just genuinely care and I enjoy it and I should own that. But what happened over time was I realized I started to become a bit of a shell of myself because I was afraid to own the fact that I really care about everything that I do. So then I got to a point where I was like, wait, this was a few years ago. I was like, wait, who am I? Like, what does Grace like when nobody else is around? What do I genuinely enjoy doing? And I feel like the last like year and a half, I'm starting to really discover that more. But if you're caring what other people think about you so much, you can do the same thing. Go right down that path of you end up becoming a shell of yourself when you don't even know what your authentic preferences are at the end of the day anymore.
You know what? This is why I'm so passionate about letting friendships fade. And this might be a hot take because I know so many people who are the complete opposite. They never let friendships fade. They will put so much effort into friendships even when it's not serving you. And I think this, like what you're talking about here, can lead to that inauthenticity in relationships where you're holding on to the relationship, even though how do you feel in it? Like, how do you feel when you're sitting across the table from your friend? Are you trying to put on a front to impress her? Are you trying to, be someone who you're not because you know that or you think they're judging you, or you feel like you can't be yourself around them. I think this is also super prevalent in dating. I always say when you're on a first date, the only thing that you should be thinking about is how you feel during that date. Do you feel like yourself, or are you putting on a front and trying to be someone you're not? Because if that's true in the first date, that's going to be true throughout your entire relationship, and you're never going to be yourself around that person. So, yeah, let friendships fade because that can be, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
I'm a big supporter of that too. And I think about a lot of the friendships I had in college, like ones earlier on in college, I did let fade because I felt like they weren't people that I could be authentic around. And when I talk about being an RA, like, yeah, there were people that I was like, we just are not going to be friends, like other people that worked in that job, because I'm like, you are the people who kind of half-ass everything. You're the person who your bulletin board, frankly, looks kind of ridiculous because you didn't even cut the damn picture out. You just put the whole piece of printer paper up on your bulletin board. You didn't even cut it out. Like, come on now, you know? It was unfathomable to me because it's like you're making fun of me for putting effort into things. But I think what I want to note with this is that those things wouldn't bother me if my sense of self was unshakable at that point. If I really knew to my core who I was and I was confident in that, what those people thought of me would not have mattered. I would have owned it and I would have said, yeah, I do. I care about everything I do. Yeah, like when I'm in class, I'm listening to the professor. I'm paying attention. I'm not on my phone. I respect my professor enough to do that. And if you want to fall asleep in class, if you want to, that's fine. That has nothing to do with me. That's none of my business. I am who I am and I own that, right? And I'm at a point now where I can say that and I can say it confidently. And I don't care if you make fun of me for putting effort into things. Like, okay, I try really hard. And but it's funny because people used to call me a try hard in a like a derogatory way. And I'm like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just you.
It's just me. That's just who I am. But I think yeah, it does lead to so much inauthenticity in relationships, and I think it is important to let those fade if you feel like those people are being critical of you or you know they're being critical of you. But I think also it goes back to kind of knowing whose opinions matter and whose don't, and being able to release yourself from the shackles of the opinions of people whose opinions like do not matter to you. And I think this was one of the biggest shifts for me, I think, in the last year of my life. Because, like I said, I used to care a lot about what people thought about me, especially on social media. And I really hope this translates and makes sense to people because it was like something clicked in my brain when I realized this, right? When someone has an opinion of you, okay, so let's use the example of person online. Whoever this, first of all, the person who DM'd me the thing of like, your podcast is shit. And I forget what they said. They said they called me some like crazy name and then said that, you know, I should stay inside. I was like, okay, period.
You're like, I like being inside.
It was the most bizarre DM ever. Like, it was so random. First of all, their account name was like my burner account. Like, that was their username. So, in the past, like for context, so in the past, I would have been like, wow, this really, like, that's really upsetting. This really got to me. Now I can look at it and I sit there and I think, I don't know you. I have no idea who you are. I don't know anything about you. Why would I care what you think of me? Why would I give that any weight? First of all, you're the type of person who creates burner accounts to DM people hateful comments. I'm not only questioning your heart, but I'm questioning your logic at this point. I'm questioning your mind. I have no idea what's going on in your life, but clearly there's a lot going on. Why would I then care and give any weight or importance to what that person thinks about me? And it sounds so simple. And I feel like people would say this to me all the time. Why would you care what they think about you? Why would you care what they think about you? But then when you really take a step back and you look at it and you're like, okay, me caring and letting that person's opinion consume me is me then placing their opinion at a higher importance or greater weight than my own, because that's, you're letting their negative opinion of you supersede what you feel about yourself. So you're not as strong in yourself as you thought. Like, you don't have the unshakable confidence. You're not as firm in who you are and in your opinion of yourself. But then why the frick are we letting this random person who clearly has a lot going on and also like is clearly not a good judge of character, is not a kind person, why are we letting their opinion be like the center of our focus? When you actually look at it that way, I started to realize, I'm like, well, damn, like every time I really care about what these like random people have to say about me, it makes no sense. Why do I care? I don't even know you. I don't even know who you are. You don't even know me. Why do I care what you think?
So I think there's a couple things that I'm thinking about here. There's three types of people. So there's people that you don't know. There's people that you do know, but they shouldn't matter because they're not in your like immediate circle. Then there's the people who actually matter, like your friends, your family, how you view yourself, your self-worth. So that's kind of three buckets. And I think on the bucket of people you don't know at all, so like the internet trolls or just people on the internet, like it's not a troll, it's a real person, but you still don't know them. And positively or negatively, they shouldn't really impact your self-worth. I think it kind of comes back. It's almost like a negative affirmation. If you get one random mean DM from an internet troll, you might not place that much weight on it. But I think over time they start to build up a little bit in the back of your mind until it becomes a negative affirmation. And that's why it's so important to have that self-trust, that unshakable confidence. And you're going to do that through refilling your cup with a lot of those positive affirmations and telling yourself positive things about yourself and really knowing who you are, the value that you provide, why you love yourself. Because if you're constantly seeing the negative, but you're not refilling with the positive, that's going to be really hard.
Absolutely. I think the other thing that's helped me so much, well, I guess there's a few things. One is learning that, and this was a very hard one for me to admit to myself, I will say. So prep yourself. This might offend some people, but what someone thinks of you is not going to bother you unless there's a part of you that believes it to be true. And when I heard this, I was like, well, no, I don't believe those things to be true. Like, I don't think that when people comment on my videos and they say, you talk weird, or if someone judges me in a social setting, because still to this day, I will get kind of like silent judgment from people about very random things. I'll be out to eat with like a new group of people and I'll get silent judgment, like a little weird look about my food allergies, or if I talk about my job or the fact that I work for myself or whatever it may be. It's very weird. That's not going to bother you unless there's a part of you that believes those things to be true. Because, for example, if someone came up to me and they were like, Grace, you're so mean. Even someone like in my life that I know, that I care about, if they're like, you're so mean, I'd be like, okay, because I'm not mean, right? I'm not a mean person. Or if someone was like, you're so lazy, I'd be like, okay, because I'm not lazy at all. So I know those things to be totally true. So then why does it bother me when, let's say, for example, someone says, this wouldn't bother me, but if someone says like, you're so dumb, why would that bother me? If the other things don't, it's because there's a part of you that believes it to be true and now somebody else is saying it. And so that confirms the belief that you have about yourself. And that's triggering because you didn't think that anybody was going to call you out on it. You didn't think anyone was going to notice that you think you're dumb. So what I realized was, okay, the way that I'm going to get unshakable confidence is to work on those negative beliefs that I have about myself. And I personally did that through therapy and through journaling and affirmations, which was like something that I started when I started working with my therapist. And it's been absolutely life-changing. I've been doing them for almost 2 years now. But to me, it really didn't change. Like I couldn't stop caring what people said about me until I knew those things in my heart and soul were not true.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to trigger you otherwise, you know?
Yeah, that's totally true. It comes back to like you're the one judging yourself. And I think it's important to remember that when you are judging yourself and you're feeling inferior, so that feeling of inferiority, that's completely self-imposed. So you're feeling inferior, you're feeling less than something. The person or thing that you're feeling less than is literally not thinking about you. And I think that's like such an important mindset shift to think about as you're going through all of this. But the last kind of section here we have is tactical ways to get past it and how to actually start taking action despite either caring what people think about you or to actually stop caring what people think about you. So the one that I have here, I don't know, this is like a buzzword that I've been hearing on social media, but I really like it. It's the rejection therapy. Have you been seeing all of the videos about it on?
Yeah, I feel like I've seen that type of content for a few years, but I think it's having a comeback.
Yes, but I love this kind of concept. And the rejection therapy just means to make it a point to do things out of your comfort zone and put yourself out there. So like we said at the beginning of this episode, like this is a muscle that you need to exercise, and you're not going to just wake up one day and not care what people think about you. And if you wait to start taking action until you don't care what people think about you, you're going to be in the exact same place next year that you are now. So yeah, there's going to be so many times in your life where you have to take action before you're done caring what other people think about it. But just take the action and continue to exercise that muscle to get to a point where you're just faking it until you make it.
I feel like you also have to learn to stop, which this is just, again, just a muscle you have to practice over and over, but stopping the thought when it happens and redirecting it. There's a book called Don't Believe Everything You Think. It's one of my favorite books. I think I've read it twice at this point, but basically it talks about the difference between a thought and thinking. And it basically says that thinking is where shit starts to go left. Like you can have a thought cross your mind, and then thinking is where you start to give it meaning. And that's where you start to like ruminate and like it kind of goes off to the left. And actually my friend's therapist recently told her, which I thought this was a good way to word it. She was like, have the thought and then let it go, right? Be like, oh, Johnny from Illinois says I'm dumb and that makes me sad. Okay, I'm gonna, and like I like to visualize. I'm a very like visual person. I like to visualize. Sometimes if you're watching the video version of this podcast, you can see, but I'll just like basically like almost put my hand in front of my head and I'll like basically act out me like grabbing the thought from my head and like throwing it away. And it really does help. It gives like I think that's part of like your brain's encoding process or something like that. There's a name for it where that's basically acting out the situation, helps you kind of remove the thought, but let the thought be there. Be like, that upset me that so-and-so thought that about me, or I'm sad because I'm afraid that someone's thinking of this of me or whatever. And then be like, okay, and I'm going to let that thought go. Say it out loud. I'm going to let that thought go and try to move forward. I also think too, that when you catch yourself, where I had to kind of catch myself, and what helped me was someone once said, and I don't know who said this, but I saw it on social media. They basically said, you assuming that someone is judging you is actually you judging them, because you're assuming that they're a judgmental person. So you're making a judgment on them. These are for people that you don't know or people that you kind of know, right? And I think in the context of posting on social media, people from that I went to school with in middle school and high school, I would think, oh my gosh, they're going to judge me. And literally nobody has that I know of. And the people that probably have judged me behind closed doors, they would never do it to my face, right? But the people from school have come out the woodworks in support of what I'm doing. And they're people that maybe I would have judged me. So sometimes I'll catch myself and I'll say, okay, I'm assuming that person's judging me, or I'm feeling like they're judging me and I'm starting to care about what they think about me. Hold on, let me pause. That's actually me judging them, thinking that they're judging me. So I'm going to stop. I'm not going to be judgmental, and I'm going to wait until they prove me otherwise, that they are in fact judging me. And 9 times out of 10, they're not.
I love that so much. The other thing that has really helped me with this as well, because I think, again, a lot of this comes from like that feeling of inferiority and almost like comparison with other people, is getting into the habit of comparing myself to my past self, not other people. The more time that you spend comparing yourself to yourself, the less time you have to compare yourself to other people. And I know a lot of, thinking about what other people are thinking of you and thinking that they're judging you comes from you comparing yourself to other people and feeling inferior to them. So just getting into the habit, putting processes and systems in place to compare yourself to your past self, whether that be a monthly review where you say, okay, what progress did I make this month? Where was I at a year from now? And where am I at today? And how am I improving? Or what areas of my life can I improve more? You're going to spend more time focusing on that and spending less time focusing on the comparison with other people.
Absolutely. And too, just going back to what we said earlier before we wrap this up, like when you think about the fact that, what people say about you is not going to bother you unless it's a part of you that believes it to be true, what they do think about you, because let's be real, there are people who will probably judge you. There are people who do think about you. Case in point, the random man in my DM, like being mean, right? Like that person obviously cares, but they're not going to be triggered by things that I'm doing to the point where they say something unless there wasn't parts of them that believed whatever triggered them to be true. If they saw a video of me and thought, okay, apparently my podcast is crap, whatever. Maybe they because they're jealous, right? Or we're doing something that they aren't, or the way that I said something upset, whatever it might be, right? It's a reflection of what's going on internally. There's this, you guys know, well, I don't know if you guys know, because I don't really talk about it, I guess, that much on my Instagram, but I am religious, and there's a part in the Bible that says your cup runneth over, basically, but I think it applies to so many different things, whether you're religious or not. When you see how people treat you, whether they are judging you, that's their cup running over. Because people who are genuinely happy, you see it on them. They glow, they're kind to people, because their cup is so full of joy that it runs over. So if there are people who are thinking about you, who are up at night just wondering what you're doing, right? Because there might be, that might happen. It's because their cup is overflowing with hatred and sadness and fear and anxiety or whatever. None of that's your business. B, because like what's going on with you? I don't care whatever's going on with you. Go to therapy. You know what I mean? That has nothing to do with me, what you think about me. None of my business. But also, if they're so, yeah, just like so full of all those emotions, that's not a reflection of you. It's none of your business. It's not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of them and what's going on internally within them.
Percent. No, I totally agree. And I think this episode was really good just to kind of, talk through some ways to identify how you could be placing too much emphasis on the thoughts of other people because they're probably not actually thinking of you. And to wrap up this episode, embrace the idea that what someone thinks of you is none of your business. The idea that if you know that our judgments are just reflections of our internal thoughts, how are we improving our internal thoughts? And when we're thinking about whose opinion matters, making sure we're putting emphasis on our own opinion and how that matters and making sure our self-worth is there. So if this episode resonated with you, definitely let us know in Spotify. Leave all of your questions, comments, feedback in Spotify. We love to hear from you guys. You can also DM us on Instagram at The Life You Love Pod. We love to hear from you over there as well. But thanks for tuning into the podcast, and until next week.